one of the things that I wanted to highlight and discuss is service. Is that, well, of course, as leaders, we are ultimately servant, right? You have servant leadership. We are serving that team, but we have to make sure that we also are incorporating the right kind of boundaries to make sure that we're not just giving too much of ourselves, because we want to make sure we serve with excellence when we are at our jobs, when we are supporting our teams, when we are managing our businesses, when we're supporting our clients. There's a level of excellence that we want to provide. However, we want to make sure that we are serving effectively, but we're also creating the right type of effective boundaries, because if we don't have boundaries, that can affect our output. That can affect the other areas that we serve. So that's what I really want to break down this morning. The purpose of it is to talk about service, how we're serving as leaders, but also how we need to make sure that we are creating healthy boundaries. So let's talk about what that looks like. So who do you serve? I want you to first identify that. Because for me, my service looks differently. I believe this is my, buckets of service. So mine might look different than yours, but I want you to first identify, who do you serve? Me, there's a level of service that I do with my family. There's a level of service that I do for myself. There's a level of service that I do for my team members, my employer, and then there's a levels of service that I maybe provide for others in other organizations that I support. There's a level of service that I do for church. So for you, your levels of service might look differently. However, there's service that you're providing in different aspects. So I want you to first identify as a leader, who do you serve? Because again, ultimately, we want to make sure we're cheerful servants, that we have enough energy, that we're given to each area effectively, but a lot of us are not. And that's why I highlighted boundaries, because sometimes as leaders, we have to create boundaries to make sure that our level of service is effective and we're serving in the right areas effectively. So one of the first things I want you to ask yourself is, who gets the most service energy and why? So if you create all these areas and pockets that you serve, who is getting most of your energy? Is it your family? Is it your employer? Is it your business? Because maybe you're a full-time business owner. Maybe it's your business. Maybe you have an employer and you're a business owner. Which one is getting the most of your service and your time and your energy? And why is that thing getting the most? Because the reality is, whatever is getting the most energy, what is not getting that much energy? Because you're giving so much to your employer, you're giving so much to maybe your business and maybe to others, and then your church or wherever else you serve, you might be neglecting your family. Maybe you're neglecting self-service and making sure you're supporting yourself. Because again, if we're going to be cheerful givers, if we're going to be people that are pouring and we're effective when we're showing up in these different areas, some of us are giving too much energy into the wrong things and we're neglecting other things. So that's why I want you to reflect and ask yourself, who gets the most service energy? And why do they get that much versus the other areas? The next thing, are you cheerful? Are you overwhelmed, stressed out as a servant? So as a leader, when you come home, are you so tired that you don't have time for your family, but you give so much energy? You're answering calls when you're supposed to not be answering calls over the weekend. You're doing things in your business, but you need to dial back and spend time for your family. Or you are doing, you're focusing on the wrong things instead of focusing on the things that need to be focused on at that time. So what happens is, when you're doing that, you become overwhelmed. You're stressed out. You're saying yes too much, where now you're saying yes to so many other things. You can't say no to other things, or vice versa. You're saying yes to so many things that you're neglecting other areas. You may lack servant boundaries. And that's why I said service is extremely important, but we have to make sure that we're creating healthy boundaries. So we are ensuring that the areas that are also important, maybe our top 3, our top 4, are getting a high level of service. So again, what are boundaries? Boundaries are a line that marks the limits of an area. So it creates limitations. It says, okay, this is a dividing line. I know that I only work Monday through Friday from 7 to 4, and I will not go beyond that time. So don't call me on these days. Or this day I'm going to dedicate to my spouse. This day I'm going to dedicate to my family. This day is a day that I'm going to give to my church, and I really need to disconnect. Or this day I'm going to give to myself because I need to disconnect altogether and work on my mental health, my fitness. So make sure that you're identifying that, and you might be lacking servant boundaries because, again, in order for you to be an effective servant, you have to create your boundaries so you're not taking on too much and you can't have that effective of an output because you aren't creating those boundaries. So how do you create servant boundaries? Again, first you have to first identify all the areas you serve. Who are you giving yourself to? What other activities are you coaching on the side? Are you, and I'm not even saying coaching necessarily with clients, but maybe you do some volunteer work in the community. What all of the areas that you serve outside of maybe family? Again, make sure you identify yourself. If you're have an employer, if you're a business owner, what are the others? Who are you spending that much time with that you're giving service to, church and so on? So you have to identify what those things are. Once you identify what those things are, ask yourself what areas receive the most energy. Is it your family? Is it yourself? Is it your employer? Which one is getting 95%? Of course, most of us work 8 hours a day. If you have an employer, or maybe in your business, you're working 8 to 12 hours, and that's getting your most energy. And now maybe you have 4 hours left for your family or 4 hours left for yourself. But what gets the most energy? And again, identify who or what is getting the most energy. The next thing is remedy the why behind the service. We have to make sure our intentions are effective. So there might be reasons why you're more of a servant in this area than this area, because maybe you value it more. Maybe you think that you're going to get more if you focus on this. Maybe you're thinking that you have to give this much service, and you're kind of pushing away from family time, but you don't even realize that your family's like, I understand that this is providing for us, but I need your quality time. So really remedy the why. Why are you giving so much service in this area versus this area? Why is that? Why isn't it valued? Why isn't it important? Or what is your intentions behind that? And then identifying what you're saying no to. Remember, whatever you're saying yes to, you might be saying no to certain areas. You might be saying no to your family. You might be saying no to your mental health. You might be saying no to your physical health. So make sure that anytime you say yes, you also have to reflect, okay, what am I saying no to? By answering this phone call, I know I'm supposed to be dedicating this time to seek some support for myself. Oh, I know I should be dedicating this time because I haven't worked out that much, and my doctor has me on a strict regimen to make sure that I'm eating healthy and I'm working out. Why are you making sure, or make sure that you are really identifying what you're saying no to? And finally, then following that, create the boundaries that's necessary. Really identify what are the top areas that you need to be spending more of your energy, or you need to be reallocating your energy levels to. So you have to shift your service energy, because again, we're serving these multiple areas, but we have to make sure that we are shifting and we're providing enough energy into the right pockets. There's a message. A lot of people, maybe if you're faith-based and you're biblically based, and we've all heard the term, or we've heard the scripture is, how we have to make sure that we are like, if a man was to gain the whole world but lose his soul. That's one of the scriptures that I've definitely heard about, how a man they can really put so much into other things and they gain the world. Like, you've gained the world, but you've neglected your soul. I've also added to that now, because you've gained the world, you've poured so much energy into this thing, you've gained so much on the outside, but now it's taken away time with your family. It's taken away time from your mental health. So you have to really make sure that, yes, you can gain the whole world, but you don't want to lose your soul. You don't want to lose your mental health. You don't want to lose your family. You don't want to lose your energy levels, because you might be saying no to an area that's just as important. If your family is important to you, you need to maybe create boundaries and reallocate your energy to that. If you're not getting that much self-care, you might have to create boundaries to make sure that you are allocating time for self-care. Okay. And we also have our pockets of time and service that we're providing to our clients, our employers, our businesses, to others or other organizations, to churches, or wherever else you serve at. But again, we have to really make sure that we're allocating our times effectively, so we're not neglecting another area. So again, remember, really consider your service. Who do you serve? Identify what that is. Identify what areas receive the most energies. Remedy and identify the why behind it. Even the talk that happens, like, if I don't answer this, what if they don't like me, or what if this and what if that? Why is that happening? Identifying if that ties to some neglect issues, some trauma, some other issues that you have. Because a lot of times where I used to say yes to so many things, it had a lot to do with my trauma as a young girl. It was things that I had to remedy because there were some neglect issues or abandonment issues that I had to remedy even as a leader. So I was saying yes to so many things because subconsciously that was like the teaching that I had developed. So sometimes in our subconscious, that's why we need to allocate time for self-care and have those conversations with a therapist, or have that time to reflect, even if you have spiritual self-care, and really search and seek as to why it's hard for me to say no. Why is it that I think it's necessary for me to say yes to everything and allocate my energy here versus allocate my energy in the areas that are important? So make sure you identify that and get to that root of the why, the root of it, because the root of it might be a lot more deeper than you know, and you might have to recognize, you know what, I need to start identifying and allocating time for self-care so I can remedy this issue I have of saying no. And again, remember, when you're saying yes to something, what are you saying no to? Are you done with the other task? Have you completed those other areas that you need to focus on? And then finally, create the boundaries. Okay, create that schedule and say, okay, I know for sure I'm off on Wednesdays to spend time with my family. I'm off on Saturdays to spend time with my family. I won't answer any calls after this certain time. I'm going to create my schedule. If you want to schedule time to talk with me, here's my schedule link. Why? Because again, you're creating those boundaries. So, hey, instead of just picking up the phone and calling me whenever, this is my availability, and call me between these pockets of time. So create those systems, because there are things that you're saying no to that you need to be saying yes to in that moment. And then start shifting your energy to make sure that you can show up effectively for the areas that are not lacking. Because again, it says, what does it take? You know, a man can gain the whole world but then lose his soul. But again, you could also lose your family. You can also lose the lack of self-care that you need to make sure you're healthy. And now it's a trickle down effect. And now you can't show up effectively and be that cheerful servant, be that effective servant, because you are giving too much energy into the areas that you might need to shift away, make adjustments in, and focus on that self-care, that family care, that care that you need to reallocate and redistribute in other areas. So I hope that blesses someone out there. Again, I think that as leaders, we need also to recognize that we need personal development. We need to make sure that we are checking ourselves, because as leaders, we still have issues, personal issues. We still have to be able to deal with stress. We still have to really take that cape off sometimes and really sit and focus on making sure that we are effective in caring for ourselves and caring for the other areas that are going to be beneficial in helping us be effective as leaders. So I hope that really supports and helps someone out there. Make sure that you share. If you want some more tips, of course, please go to my YouTube page or go to my website. Again, I also provide workshops and things of that sort. So if you want personal development versus professional development, because both of them go hand in hand, make sure you reach out, schedule some time, and we can really work on assessing and identifying and creating a plan to make sure that you are developing not only professionally, but you're also developing personally as a leader. Because remember, people don't tend to quit the organization, they tend to quit the leader. And there could be some things personally that you need to develop as a leader to make sure you show up effectively so people don't walk away from that organization. So I hope, again, that supports you today. Please reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. Share this to a leader who needs that support, and I'll catch you guys next week. Have a great day.